There is a drama, a miniature drama, carried out in virtually every sentence we may utter. What is a signifier? I can propose its simple definition. It is that in language which can be replicated. So its replication, repetition, iterativity enables speech. It is that in language which can be linguistically classified, pinned down and dissected in a web of differences. It upholds a logic which functions well enough, despite its pitfalls, with which we must make do. But the voice which sustains the speech, the voice which is the vehicle and the means whereby we can speak, cannot itself be linguistically described, although it stands at the very core of speaking. So what can be pinned down and classified is the phoneme, the particular discrete sound. It is the voice molded by the signifier, cut down to size, so that it can produce meaning. For it is only with signifiers that one can make sense. They are there, as the name indicates, in order to signify. But voice is another matter. It is that in language which doesn't contribute to signification. It is what doesn't help making sense. And this could serve as a sort of provisional definition. It is what cannot be said, although it enables saying. It is the means in the ascent towards meaning, to be eventually discarded, once we have climbed to the peak of meaning. The voice is unique, unrepeatable, singular, and therefore not subject to linguistic description. It is what cannot be universalized. Hence, it can serve, or so it seems, as the pledge of one's ineffable being in the midst of replication, iterativity. It can serve as the pledge of love. And this is where the linguistic drama intersects the drama of others. But in its unrepeatable singularity, and for that very reason, it is also immediately vanishing, evanescent, disappearing the moment it appears. Here, briefly, a chapter can be opened under the heading of Poetry and the Unconscious. If the voice is the remainder of the universal, that what cannot be universalized, then this remainder works within the universal and contaminates it. It is not simply that the signifier excludes the voice and bends it out of its boundaries. It also contains it within its own nature. And this is where a signifier is never simply a signifier, never simply a creature of difference and replication, but itself possesses an erratic and unpredictable nature, stained by the voice. It is always a sound object, not merely the bearer of signification. And this is where the effort of poetry lies, to capture the voice with the signifier, to seize what cannot be replicated with what can be, to work with what is singular in the signifier, not with what can be cloned, with the contingent within the necessary. So the signifier has a double nature. Apart from its differential signifying properties, it also produces erratic sound echoes, reverberations, sound contagions, similarities, the stuff that can be put to use in repetitions, rhythms, rhymes, the stuff that can unexpectedly produce another meaning, a signification beyond signification, although both are inextricably tied together. This is where signification redoubles itself, contingently, precisely where it stumbles upon the voice. The voice is this erratic appendix of the signifying logic. So following the signifier enables everyone to be a speaker. Speech is a universal function. But following the sound echoes and unpredictable patterns is elusive. It cannot be universalized or taught. So poets are very rare creatures. And I can here only briefly mention the name of Roman Jakobson, whose illustrious linguistic career was constantly moving on this edge. How can language produce poetic effects on top of its signifying nature? Yet, there is a way in which everyone is a poet, unwittingly, a poet against one's will, insofar as one is endowed with an unconscious. The unconscious, such as Freud understands it, depends precisely upon taking this contingent nature of language, the voice, the echo, the sound contamination, as a ubiquitous function. Freudian slip, one says. What does one slip on? Well, the meaning slips precisely on the excess of the voice, where words are not treated as signifiers but as sound objects. And it is this excess of the voice, the sound echoes, the similarities, the contaminations, which make the meaning slip. Familière happens to have an echo in millionnaire in German, so it can produce this famous Freudian joke of familionnaire. I sat beside Solomon Rothschild, this is a joke, and he treated me as his equal, quite familionnaire. This is from the book on jokes. So, I take this beautiful dream of Freud's, which turns around the word hearsay, which appears as a name of a station on a travel. And I quote this dream, this brief word. Hearsing was a compound. One part of it was derived from the names of places in the suburban area near Vienna, which so often end in ing, like heating, leasing, muddling. The other part was derived from the English word hearsay. End of quote. So hearsing as opposed to hearsay. Hearsing along with hearsay, inserted into the hearsay. This is perhaps an economical description of the way a signifier works with the unconscious. The element of singing in say, that which doesn't contribute to signification, which could be the stuff that the dreams are made of. It enables the flash of appearance of the unconscious. And if the hearsay evidence is not admitted in court, the point of the analysis is to lend it an ear, to give hearsay a hearing, to give a hearing to the point where the leftover of signification invades the very process of signification. But what is now at stake is not the aesthetic effect. Let's listen how the unconscious sings and enjoy it. What is at stake is the question of knowledge, the unconscious knowledge, the unconscious desire, and the unconscious thought. And that was Freud's outrageous idea. There is this beautiful sentence in Agamben, a sentence very simple, but core, which is the search for voice in language. This is what one calls thought. So, thought not dependent on the meaning, not on signifier, but precisely on what is recalcitrant to signifier, what escapes meaning. So the problem is to focus the question of knowledge precisely around the element of the voice, which will have the signification. Unconscious knowledge, unconscious thought, unconscious desire get their only foothold in the most precarious matter of sound contaminations and echoes, precisely in that which in the signifier doesn't contribute to making sense. They hinge on the excess of the voice against the meaning. They're always interruptions of meaning. It slips. And the point is not to unearth the hidden meaning in that excess, but rather to maintain the very excess and pursue its logic. For the unconscious, as Freud points out, doesn't reside in the latent thoughts disclosed by interpretation. It is not another meaning, a deeper meaning, a hidden meaning. It resides in the form, in the excess of distortion, of Entstellung, which sticks precisely to this voice of the signifier, to its excrescence. The unconscious, this is a simple point on which I just briefly insist. The unconscious is not a deeper meaning to be unearthed. It resides only in this form. One could say, it seems the unconscious is telling us something in a roundabout way. So it seems that our task, the task of interpretation, would be to say it directly, plainly, without the bypass of this distortion. But this is the error, this is the loop. The unconscious is telling us something only in the roundabout way. It resides only in this distortion, in this surplus. In this form sticks precisely this element of recalcitrant voice. And this is where the analytic interpretation is a sort of misnomer. It runs against the grain of common notion of interpretation. It's not about finding meaning, rather to pinpoint this vacillating object which can be epitomized by the voice. So, what's in the voice? For one part, the lovers of Verona no doubt amply rely on the voice in this first sense, on the poetic voice which sustains the love in the dark, in this conjunction of their singularity, and the poetic effects makes this scene so memorable. But there is more in the voice and other things.